From the southernmost point of Dorne to the lands of always winter, what is west of Westeros and the shadows in the east, this is Casterly Talk. A bit of a return. I'm Ken Napzok, and here we are for the 99th episode of Casterly Talk, but the 100th broadcast. If you're one of those keep score at home folks, but more importantly, we are back up and running. I want to thank everyone who has been a loyal listener to Casterly Talk, even going back to the days when it was Daily Thrones. We have been through some transitions, and now this is the biggest transition yet for the show, and I'm just here to kind of bring it all back. I don't want to welcome myself back. That seems kind of weird. Seems like something Jaime Lannister season 1 would do. But it's good to be back. We are a podcast first, but also we do have a YouTube channel that is new and building. You can catch episodes there if you'd like, but always take us with you. Download the podcast, rate and review, subscribe wherever it may be. And that's kind of where we start this journey as I kind of come back into the fold here. We'll explain a little bit about what we are and what we're doing. So this show, like I said, began on Anchor as a daily podcast called Daily Thrones. It wasn't even a podcast. It was like a little audio blog almost, but it kind of grew as Anchor grew. We were housed on Anchor for a long time, which is a great place. I have nothing but good things to say about the fine folks at Anchor. Highly recommend it. But Casterly Talk was brought in under the Good People Association umbrella. That's the company I launched with Eric Bass, the Shinedown, Mark Riley, and Josh McCouga. And we did that. One of the reasons we did that is I wanted to kind of maybe build out this separate YouTube channel under that GPA banner. But also, we were looking to launch a podcast network. And that was one of our goals for the company. And it took a little bit. And I got a little busy. Casterly Talk was still going a little bit on my own under the old banner. And then it finally happened. The fine folks at Blue Wire Podcasts kind of showed up at our doorstep and said, hey, we'd like you to be part of what we do here. And Blue Wire, a great company. They are primarily known and deal mostly with sports podcasts. So if you're a big sports fan, as I am, check out a lot of their stuff. A lot of great regional shows, bigger shows, big talent coming on board. But they signed us because they're trying to expand and grow, and comedy and pop culture is definitely a place they're interested in doing that. So we're one of the first through the gate, so to speak, like a bunch of White Walkers attacking Hardhome with some whites behind them, or maybe in front of them, or over them as they fall down cliffs. We are first through the gate. Maybe it's more like, I should say, more like Thoros Amir with his flaming sword into Pike. Maybe that's the example I was thinking of. But we are part of the feed, Good People Association podcast feed, and then in the afternoons with Josh, Ken, and Amanda has its own feed under Blue Wire. And now Casterly Talk does as well. And contract negotiations, things happen, and then we finally get it going. And then we had to, transfer the podcast. You had to redirect it, which can kind of take a bit. And then I'm giving you too much information. You don't need this, but I'm telling you anyway. I had to re-upload every episode of Casterly Talk, convert it to a different format onto Megaphone, where the podcast is now housed. So took a while. All that to say, that's what happened. It took a while. But we're back up and running. It's just me here today. But as you know, if you listen to the show, I don't like to do these alone often. I can chat with myself because I feel as though I'm chatting all directly with you out there. But a lot of the names you know and love, the Rachel Cushings, the Lon Harrises, Andres Cabrera, Thomas Rissling, previous guests, Michelle Boyd, Alden Diaz. A lot of people are going to be coming on here as we get this back up and running. And that's who we are. We are here to celebrate the world of Ice and Fire, the Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, shows, spin-offs, books, history books, maps. We're here to talk about this world. And that's for those who might be joining now or maybe rediscovering the podcast or coming back to it. I just want to make that clear as I kind of give an impromptu mission statement here. This isn't just about a TV show that I like. That's where it started for me. Our entry points into this world are different. Some it was the books back in the 90s. Some it was the books along the way. Some, for me, Game of Thrones, the show on HBO that then turned me into a big fan of the Song of Ice and Fire, of the entire world and the show. This isn't just about the show. it dominates, obviously. This isn't just about the show's forthcoming. It is about our appreciation and love of this world that George R. R. Martin created and that has been expanded and continued to be expanded and is going to be expanded upon more, to something we'll talk about here today. We are in the middle of a Game of Thrones rewatch. When this all kind of went down, I had to press pause on that rewatch. We are the 98th episode of Casterly Talk was Otto Hightower. It was we're into season 3, episode 1, which is one of my favorite episodes. Great setup episode. Great stuff for Jon Snow and his mission and his life going forward. A lot of things there. And then we had to press pause. So we're going to pick that up. But I was going to dive right back in with the rewatch. But I figured, why not give everyone a chance to maybe get up to speed? Because a lot of you, and I'm so honored that you do this, a lot of you like to watch along with me, and we break it down. So season 3, episode 2, which is episode 22 of the show overall, Dark Wings, Dark Words, which was directed by Daniel Minahan and written by Vanessa Taylor. That's coming next week on the podcast. So if you want to get up and running on that, have some questions ahead of time, I'll be pre-taping some of the rewatch episodes, but most of them will be done on a weekly basis. More about that on the end on how to reach out and how to contact there. So that's going on. But the mission statement, what we do here is we're diving in. And like on that rewatch, that Game of Thrones rewatch, what we're doing, I'm very aware where the show ended up for some people. I'm very aware that the discourse around Game of Thrones, the HBO blockbuster show, ended up in kind of a acrimonious, split, divisive space. I get that. I'm not here for those conversations. I am here to dive into the themes, to dive in what the show is trying to tell us, to dive in what is there in the story and analyzing that and applying it to our lives and seeing the lessons learned and celebrating the great scenes, celebrating the dragon fire, celebrating the love, celebrating the nudity, celebrating the sex position. No, all right, maybe we don't celebrate that. Celebrating the characters in this world that we all fell into. I am not just a fan of the TV show. I'm a fan of what it is. Much like me in the Star Wars world. A lot of you might know me over there with Force Down and everything. It's not about, I like Star Wars. It's just this way of life. And it's something that I'm unapologetic for. I love just celebrating, but not just being positive, yippee skippy like a dolphin clapping for do dolphins clap? I don't know, like a dolphin or Varys the merman clapping for another treat. I am here to dive on in. I'm here to sometimes question, sometimes to wonder if things fully worked. And those are great questions to have. And the guests and the other pundits on this channel are free to do that, and we will do that. But I'm not here for what I feel and fear is sometimes just pointless punditry and gut reactions, surface takes. You don't have to like every episode. You don't have to like every season. You have to be prepared to dive on in with us and find what is there for us to enjoy in Game of Thrones. And that is what we're doing. And the rewatch will continue. Season 3, episode 2, coming up here on the show. That'll be the 100th proper episode. So I figured a little pause was apropos. A little pause to catch up and also to catch up on some news. One of the reasons I was so bummed that I kind of had to press pause on the podcast is we started getting a lot of great news from Game of Thrones, from the world of Ice and Fire. And man, it's exploding. So I figure we'll do a little bit of a catch up today. I'm just by myself here. We're going to start getting ready for House of the Dragon. I can't think of anything that I'm more excited for right now, other than maybe a new Star Wars movie. But even then, I'm excited for House of the Dragon. There's the stuff coming off the set photos, and I try to avoid those leaks, but sometimes you can't. But just the official photos, some of the things, the casting, we're going to catch up with that. I'm so excited for the show, and I can't think of anyone more apt to take us through that than Rachel Cushing. She'll be in here. She's such a fan of the books, and she's just a wealth of knowledge for the books and the characters and names and the meanings behind it all and what we can expect. We're going to have her back on very soon, of course. And then, of course, Andres Cabrera. I'll get Lon Harris back in here. The man who created the name Casterly Talk, that he generously let me rebrand this podcast with that name. Thomas Rissling, who used to do the Ruminations from the Realm segment. He'll be back with his insight as well if I can convince him to. Thomas, come on back. No, I'm kidding. He's ready to go. So that's what's coming. Let's get into some of the news here. And I always want to shout out. This podcast is not just a one thing to itself in an island of an island in the bigger world of Game of Thrones. There's so many other great shows out there. So many wonderful YouTube channels. So many news sites dedicated to the Game of Thrones and the world of Ice and Fire. And I want you to celebrate them. And we're going to talk about them here. Always going to try to give credit when credit is due. Always going to put these shows out there for you all to check if you don't know them. This is not just me. I'm not competing against these channels. I am here to grow with you, grow the community of Casterly Talk and my specific way of looking at it. My word is never gospel. The guests and pundits on this show, their words are never gospel. It is our opinion. It is our interpretation. I just love to dive on in and find what is there. So I want to do a shout out to two of the biggest news sources that are there constantly and are still going strong. Winteriscoming.net. Great cast of characters over there like Dan Selke, Drew Maidman, who gather and are putting together the news and making it. They have great podcast over there too, and they're putting good stuff out there. And I always want to shout out WatchersOnTheWall.com. Check out WatchersOnTheWall.com. Great news source too as well. So if you're like me and got a little bit behind on the Game of Thrones news in the last few months, maybe even the last year, don't worry. Head over there and they got a roundup for you as well. Great YouTube channels out there that I watch along with all of you. Alt Shift X comes to mind. And Alt Shift X has a channel. Hey, he didn't really love Game of Thrones Season 8. And I kind of disagreed with a lot of the takes on it, but that's okay. That's okay. I just want everyone to engage on a deeper level with what's going on out there in the world. So, all right. I think a lot of you longtime listeners are like, yeah, Ken, we get it. You love this stuff. Let's talk about it. Let's catch up on some of the news. House of Dragon's cast. I just want to start there. We all know House of the Dragon is coming. So I sometimes can get a little lost. Even on the characters, and never be afraid. This is a channel. This is a podcast that if you're over there, like, man, I'm not. What is that name? Or I can't remember that island. Or what country? What year does that happen? Don't worry about that stuff. Just keep enjoying. Keep engaging with Game of Thrones. Keep engaging with the Song of Ice and Fire. There's so many great wikis. A wiki of Ice and Fire comes to mind. There's so many things resources you can check, books you can read. That information will find you if you need it. Don't ever worry about that here. Because I'm right now, even though I'm looking right across in my studio here. George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood is one of my favorite pieces of Game of Thrones writing. I love it. It is a history book. Some people found it boring. I just loved every page of it. I just love soaking it up and I love learning all the players and names. Some of them, you hear just because you're a fan. Nymeria comes to mind, and there's so many different versions. Is it Nymeria the Great Warrior? Nymeria the ship? Nymeria the blade? Is it a dragon? What is it? And don't be afraid to just be like, I'm not sure. Let me look it up. Let me find out, and let me just enjoy what's coming. And because of that, and that spirit, I went to winteriscoming.net, and Drew Maidman had a great story up about 2 weeks ago, just kind of saying, hey, here's the characters. Here's who's playing them, and here's what to expect. I don't want to take any of his words about what to expect within these characters. That's not the point today. This is not a House of the Dragon prep episode. This is just catching up as we move forward. I want to go through the cast as presented by Drew, so check out his story on winteriscoming.net if you want. And actually, please do it. Just give them a click and check them on out. Eve Best as Princess Rhaenys Velaryon. Velaryon. Yeah, Rachel's not here to correct me. This is one of the big characters coming forward. This is the queen that never was. Rhaenys is the eldest daughter of Prince Aemon Targaryen, the eldest son of King Jaehaerys. You got to know those lines, and it's going to get a little confusing. She's one of the key players because we know the Great Council of Year 101 is going to be what happens after her son dies. Second son, Balon, per Drew's notes to help remind me. That leads, that kind of starts a lot of the action going forward. So she is going to be there as well. Check out that character. This picture going around, Steve Toussaint as Lord Corlys. Velaryon is a very important character. Lord Corlys is the sea snake, a great character in Fire and Blood. If you read that book, just really vibrant, pops on the screen. He is going to be an older version of himself, right? He's traveled the world. He's seen it all. He's coming into the show here. That's going to be, and that's one of the pictures that's going around. Great look, different look for the show. Going to be diverse look for the show, which I think is important for House of the Dragon going forward. And he was in Judge Dredd, Prince of Persia, among many things. A lot of UK fans will be familiar with him. And of course, as always, a lot of UK actors are probably going to pop up in these shows. But a UK actor that a lot of us Yanks know is, of course, Paddy Considine. And he is in one of my favorite movies, Hot Fuzz. He's going to be King Viserys first, Targaryen, Viserys the first. He is going to be at the center of the show here, one of the centers of the show. So get to know him. Then we got Fabian Frankel as Kriston Cole. Kriston Cole, he and Rhaenyra, did they love each other? Did they not love each other? They friends? They close? They covers? Their love affair or quotations around that are going to be pretty key to the show. So as Drew writes in his article, we know from Fire and Blood that they were close. Yeah, the text leaves the exact nature of that relationship ambiguous, is what Drew writes. And that is something I think Game of Thrones, the show, did so well. Took some of the words from the books, those beloved, vaunted, venerable books, and said, hey, here's some, we can dig into that. We can work into that. Take whether it's relationships, whether it's kind of expanding on Loras and Renly comes to mind as one of the examples of that, or even just Hard Home itself and just going, what's this little blip of a thing? What can we turn it to on the show? This is one of those characters that will be interesting to see how they develop and how key he'll be to the story. Hand of the King is Rhys Ifans as Otto Hightower. Oh, those Hightowers, key to this realm. House Hightower, not one of those houses prominent in the HBO show, as we know, because they're from the past, and we're going to be diving into that as well. That's probably one of the more from Notting Hill, of course. A lot of people know Rhys. That's probably, to me, the most recognizable actor going in, but I could be wrong. But again, this is one Yank's opinion. Olivia Cooke is kind of the de facto star of the show in a lot of ways. She's out there right now in front of a lot of the press. She's Alicent Hightower. This is a key player in this story. I love that Drew writes, think of Alicent as even more mature and successful version, but not a virgin, of Marjorie Tyrell. I saw Marjorie's name pop up and I was like, oh, that's a Vestal Virgin, Game of Thrones. So this, of course, is she's going to have a feud with her stepdaughter, Rhaenyra, and that is going to lead to this Targaryen civil war, this dance of dragons that we're going to be diving into. She is part of the Blacks versus the Greens, which will probably, imagine, be on the show, where she wore a green gown, and those that now wear the green support her and her son Aegon and their claim to the throne. Going to be very key. We've got a follow-up article on her. Emily Carey, cast as a young Alicent Hightower, which is great to see. I'll bring in a little bit of flashbacks there. We got Sonoya Mizuno. Get to know these names. Get names. She's going to be Mysaria. You might know her from Ex Machina. She will be in the show as well. She's kind of a character that grows up as a peasant out of King's Landing, and he eventually finds herself in the company of Daemon Targaryen. Going to be a different take there. Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra Targaryen. This is probably the other key character of the show. One of the other, dare I say, leads of the show. Going to be opposite of Olivia Cooke as Alicent Hightower. This is, of course, the other person with the claim to the throne. And whenever you have a claim to the throne, it can get messy. Many people dispute her claim based on her gender, which would be interesting to see how the show deals with that. That's, I think, one of the not necessarily themes, but issues it can explore during this time by using a fantasy story from another world and another realm and another age, and see how it applies to what we got going on now. And of course, there'll be a younger version of her. Millie Alcock is going to play the young Rhaenyra Targaryen. We got the rogue prince Matt Smith as Daemon Targaryen. A lot of people know and love Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor on Doctor Who. He also recently was in The Crown, and very distinct look. He is going to be our feared warrior, our big warrior hero, a dragon rider, going to be a very important character there as well. A lot of people looking forward to the work that he is no doubt going to do. From there, it goes into kind of unconfirmed. John Mcmillan seen on set, seen some photos, and Graham McTavish, known by a lot of folks for Outlander and The Hobbit, as one of the dwarfs following Bilbo around there. He is in the show, looks like possibly an unknown role. So that's just a catch up. Again, I'm just kind of getting us around, caught up on the news roundup, and we'll start diving into those characters. We'll start looking at what they mean, what themes and issues they can help us explore and help the show kind of dive into, allow the show to dive into those themes. And it just also speculation fun and get you caught up. Even though I have read Fire and Blood and I've read this section a couple times, the little minute details are often lost on me. It's this show, this world does take a lot of investment if you want to know it on a deep level. Sometimes it's just repetition. And I think I personally find myself in I like where I am going into House of Dragon. I want to get refreshed a little bit more. I want to know a little bit more. But if I learned anything from Game of Thrones, once I got ahead of the show and read in the books, it changes the way you interact with the show, and it can lead to more disappointments and expectations. I think we have a little bit. House of the Dragon is a little bit of an advantage over Game of Thrones as a show where we were so tied to those books and so felt that those books were an exact roadmap. And I would argue that the show never intended that to be the case, that the show within the first 30 seconds was like, we're going to do our own thing with this wonderful world. It's going to look and sound and feel so similar and so familiar, and at times be exactly the same. But really, overall, we're doing our own thing. We're telling our own story. House of the Dragon has to do that. That's how these adaptations and how these TV shows, and in many cases, movies, have to work. They cannot be beholden to every word, every plot point, every character. So I think the show has a little bit of an advantage right now, where even myself right now, you see, I'm kind of reading these names. I know these names. I've seen these names all through texts. I've talked about these names on podcasts. But I'm at a spot where I'm like, I don't know them intimately. I don't know every move they make in the books. And I'm going to try to keep myself in that spot. I don't know where you guys are. Some people love to know it all and take that research into the show. I want to have a push-pull kind of relationship with some of the books and text and research going in to know the characters enough, but not to myself as a fan be tied to anything that I feel they have to do. I think the show is going to expand on what's there because there's not a lot like we know, but it's going to be able to do its own thing in a way that Game of Thrones never had that chance to do. So I'm curious to see overall. Doesn't mean they can't make mistakes. Doesn't mean they can't do it wrong. But I'm excited. I'm also excited because you see this great article, Christina Radish over at Collider put together, did a little interview that's actually forthcoming with Olivia Cook, who, as we said, is going to be Allison Hightower. And she said this, one little quote I want to read here. This is from Olivia Cook again, as told to Christina Radish. What's amazing about Game of Thrones, like we saw in the past series, is that one season, one season, you hate a character. And the next, you absolutely love them and will go to the ends of the earth for them. You just don't know what you're going to get with these characters. They're so well written, such as the human condition. You can do some horrendous things. Then you can also do some wonderful things as well. It's very complex. It's not black and white at all. And she's talking about what she's going to be putting in the character. She's very cagey, as she should be. She said, I don't know if I can say anything without really giving it away. But she definitely has a way she's playing it. And we got some moral, complicated conflicts at the core. In this article here on Collider, Gregory Lawrence putting that together based off a Christina Radish interview for the upcoming film Naked Singularity. So I'm excited about that. I wouldn't expect anything less for that in a new Game of Thrones show, right? That's kind of what we want. It's kind of what we love about this world. That's what's baked into it from George R.R. Martin. I was watching a bit of a clip of him on YouTube the other day, which is, one of my hobbies. Just let me catch 10 minutes of a George R.R. Martin interview. They're pretty wild sometimes, and other times they're not boring, but they're just George rattling off history facts. He's a genius when it comes to that kind of stuff. But he was talking about his experience with scouring of the Shire, and how he was affected in reading Fellowship of the Rings and Gandalf's death, and how he actually was kind of bummed. I'm paraphrasing all here, but kind of bummed that Gandalf came back, and he likes Gandalf the Grey better than Gandalf the White. And you can see where that influenced him later on, though, he brought characters back as well. And they were always kind of changed after as well. But that never left him, that shock of the death, the stakes being raised. And then saying how he loved Peter Jackson's adaptations of the books. He just didn't love the idea that they cut out the scouring of the Shire or shower. And it's hot in my studio here today. And that kind of bummed him out, but he got it. He gets it as a movie, I think. But he just likes that kind of darkness, the complicated tones. So that's baked into every character he's created. And that's why we're here, and that's why we love it. So hearing this little preview of an interview forthcoming from Olivia Cooke and what she's doing to craft a layered Alicent to Hightower, I'm so excited for that kind of stuff. I'm so excited that in this Dance of the Dragons, this Targaryen civil war, just like if you read that big section from Fire and Blood, who you root for sometimes changes page by page. Who you think is right changes page by page. This is a story that will allow us to dive into those deeper themes, which is why I love looking at those Game of Thrones in that kind of way and looking at those themes. If you need to be convinced a little bit more, that's understandable, right? Like I said, we can't deny, we always have to acknowledge that Game of Thrones, as it went on, the show, as I think any show, any movie series will face. Expectations are created. Choices are made by the creators. Choices are made by the actors and how they play out the scenes. Editors make choices. Everyone's making choices, and the show can make choices that you don't like, that you don't love. Game of Thrones season 8, man, big time, right? I always say I get it, but I just want people to engage with it on a different level. Personally, just so everyone knows, so they're clear with me, I think Game of Thrones season 8 is one of my favorite seasons. If you're going to rank seasons, to me, it's kind of like my second or third favorite season behind season 1, season 2, or around those conversations. I love everything they did with it. Fast-paced, some things left off the table. Yeah, totally. I can totally get with that. I can totally have those conversations. But on my rewatch, and I've rewatched Game of Thrones now a few times, but on this rewatch where I'm hyper-focused on the themes and the lessons and what the story of the TV show is trying to tell us, I really do believe it was all there. And I do believe it was an honest and true conclusion to what they were trying to do on the show. Doesn't mean it's going to hit with everyone. Completely understand. But a lot of you out there, probably even watching now, probably even listening now, are like, yeah, got it, Ken, but I didn't like season 8. I didn't like season 7. I didn't even like season 6, or at least a lot of parts of it. And that's always going to be the case. It's always going to be the case. So maybe you want to check in with someone. So looking at the story from 2 months ago, Dan Selke over on winteriscoming.net. I sat down with David J. Peterson, who was the Callanger who puts together, or is it Collinger? Callanger? See, I don't know. I don't put together languages. I'm just a dummy who likes dragons. David J. Peterson created a lot of the languages. In fact, I would say, I think all the languages in Game of Thrones. Some that were used, some were not used. He was on a episode of the podcast Game of Owns, so check them out. Don't know them, but I always like to shout out people who did these interviews and put them out in the world. Like I said, we're a community here. One for all for one, something like that. I don't know. I think it's a Star Trek thing. Ask Spock about it. David J. Peterson he seems to be really involved with this House of Dragons. Also was really involved with Blood Moon. And why would you not bring him in? He's amazing. I had the chance to talk to him back when I was working over on Screen Junkies and the show Watching Thrones. We brought him in for an episode. Interesting guy, creating all these languages, a lot going on in his head. And I do believe he's the type of guy that would, I think, say what he really feels. And he's very excited Very excited. And he says this again. This is from the podcast Game of Owns. Check out, go to winteriscoming.net. It's about a 2-month-old article put out by Dan Selke. And he said this quote, I hope the season 8 naysayers, I just hope they give it a chance. I totally understand, though. I totally get the perspective of somebody who was like, the show or this movie burned me, so I'm done with this franchise forever. I do actually understand that mentality. In this case, I really hope they give it a shot. Watch the first episode or two with an open mind. That's all I ask. And pay special attention to all the work I did, because that's going to be the best stuff on the show. I'll say a lot of work since last year. That's interesting there. He also goes on to describe it, saying, show is vastly different in all the ways it's different. It's better. For me, it was really nice knowing that everybody knows exactly what's going on. There are no surprises. It's been better, hands down. Just him talking about his experience with the show. Like I said, I think I've met him. I sat down with him for a full hour interview. He's going to be pretty honest. I remember when I talked to him, he was kind of bummed. He had created the language for not only the White Walkers that really wasn't used in the pilot episode, but and anything with them, but also the Children of the Forest. And that episode that we saw, the Children of the Forest, Leaf creating the Night King, they didn't speak, and he was kind of bummed. And he's not afraid to say it. So if you're out there going, man, I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about what we got going on with this new show. I was burned. I didn't like it. Coffee cup on a table. Arg. I think heed the words. Listen to the words. Take the advice of David J. Peterson. Give this one a chance. And I'm already excited, man. I'm excited in a different way. It's absolutely a different way. Game of Thrones was so surprising for so many. Yeah, the book readers might have known what was coming, but even the book readers in the early going there, let's not even worry about anything that the show went outside of the books, which I can, within the first 30 seconds, the show was carving its own path. But I think season 1, season 2, I think it really did surprise almost everyone. Other than maybe the people who finally got it right behind the scenes there, that old reshot pilot and whatnot. But you know what I mean? Like, that show didn't necessarily come out of nowhere, but the fact that they pulled it off was a surprise. This is 2011 when this finally hits. It's crazy to think, right? Now we're waiting for this epic Lord of the Rings show, Wheel of Time, all the shows that came after Game of Thrones. And let's not forget the shows that came before that helped lay the groundwork for premium television on HBO and other places like that. But Game of Thrones did something pretty amazing and a big surprise. House of the Dragon, where it has an advantage of not being tied to a large collection of written words, it has a disadvantage in that you can't help but think it's so super connected to the Game of Thrones that we all just finished watching. And it is. It is. And Miguel Sapochnik, one of the people behind it, it's going to be connected. And in fact, there's a lot of stories where they're shooting. They're shooting in some of the same locations. Make no mistake. It is that world. It is that universe. This isn't a multiverse yet, as far as we know. Again, how does Varys travel as a merman? You let me know. I'm convinced. Time warps, portals, maybe multiverses. I'm kidding. I don't think he's a merman. So that's where the show House of the Dragon definitely has a disadvantage. There's going to be some baggage going into it. Absolutely is. So I hope you do what David J. Peterson is saying. I hope you do what I'm suggesting. Just see what this show does for you. Maybe it will reignite your love for this world. All right. I'm going to take a sip of water. We're going to catch up here and talk about some of the other things coming our way here in the world of Ice and Fire. All right, let's get back to it here. When you do a podcast by yourself, you kind of have to build in your own breaks. And thank you for supporting and listening. Yes, through Blue Wire, we have some ad breaks and ads at the beginning from the show. And I know some people, don't like ads on shows, but you know what? We need to get those gold dragon coins to spend around the world. Reality of our business. All right, catching up with some of the animated shows, and as we keep going here on a news roundup, the Hollywood Reporter, and it's actually James Hibbard who wrote the great book "Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon." If you want some behind-the-scenes stuff, kind of a oral history of the show that we all love, HBO's Game of Thrones, go get James's book, fire cannot kill a dragon. A lot of interviews that you've heard before, a lot of stuff you haven't heard before, and a lot of great insight, including some of the producers and directors saying, hey, here's a spot where we made a mistake. Here's why we did this. You might not like why we did this, but here is why. And that's all in the end of the day I want from creators. And that's kind of all I want from the fans that might want to pick stuff apart. You might not like it, but here's why we did it. And you might not like it, but here's why they did it. You can react to that, not to your expectations that weren't met, or your thoughts and theories, or a story or a rumor you might have heard. I don't think I was, of all the stuff going on in season 8, that coffee cup incident, which was hilarious in its own right, careless, definitely, but also not abnormal to Hollywood productions and just productions overall. The fact that was used against season 8. Like, oh, Dan and Dave didn't get it. This is how little they cared about season 8. They let this coffee go. That's when the discourse becomes disingenuous. And that's when I got really grumpy. So all that to say, I don't want to get down that path again. All right. Check out James's book. He put out this story here a little bit ago, kind of keeping us up to date on HBO Max, developing 2 more Game of Thrones animated shows. It was exclusive to the Hollywood Reporter at the time. One of the projects is Imperial China is the show about Yi, which is the Imperial China-inspired land of the world of Westeros and Essos, Planetos, right? That's what George. That's what he says, right? I know what it is, but sometimes I Sothoros versus Sothoros was something that sometimes you just don't hear it. You say it wrong. There's a lot of names to get wrong in the world of Ice and Fire. So that is an animated show in development. They're looking at a couple of animated shows. In fact, this is where I can say I've even heard some stuff around town. So some of the other live action shows, there was going to be one in Flea Bottom, not going forward. Then you got this idea of 10,000 Ships, which follows the warrior queen Nymeria. You got the idea of 9 Voyages, which would follow around the Corlys Velaron, who it might be a younger version, I would say, and Steve Toussaint plays the older version in House of the Dragon. Those are some of the ideas that were out there. So and just keep up on it. And there's, Blood Moon canceled. Dunkin' Egg, is it happening? Is it not happening? It's been interesting to kind of watch, but the 10,000 Ships is a really great idea, really interesting idea. And not too long ago, actually, we got an update on that potentially. And I say potentially back in May. I'm reading a story here from Watchers on the Wall by David Rosenblatt, calling in some information from Deadline. The Deadline over there on their website said Amanda Siegel is the first announced rider to tackle the legendary Princess Nymeria and her 10,000 ships. Not much more known beyond that. And that's the thing as well. So I could definitely, having living and working out here in the Hollywood world, which is weird because not a lot of productions done here, especially in the world of Game of Thrones, right? HBO Max is absolutely trying to win this streaming war, right? They're trying to gather IP, trying to go deep into what they own through Warner Brothers and the Harry Potters and the DCs and all those kind of things. It's no different than Disney with Star Wars and Marvel, and now you got Netflix and all that kind of stuff. But these companies that have access to IP, and how can they, quite frankly, exploit it to make money? None of these are nonprofit businesses started out of the goodness of people's hearts. They're trying to get our money. They're trying to get our subscriptions. They're trying to get our clicks. It's just the way of it. You can look at that cynically, or you can look at it like, hey, if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, a fan of Song of Ice and Fire like I am, and I know a lot of you watching and listening right now are, we're getting a chance to get this new GOT universe. And I got to say at the beginning, when they even announced the spinoff, and then they had the 3 or to 5 or whatever that were being worked on, and Blood Moon emerges as the prequel of choice, I was very excited. We talked about it here on the channel, talked about it here on the podcast. Interesting stuff to dive into. I was a little dubious, little bit of doubt on today. This is something that even I wanted. Is it a cheap grab? Is it a cheap money grab? Is it gonna work out? I'm from a generation that TV spinoffs, not every one of them's Frasier. More bad spinoffs out there than good ones, but there's also some great ones. I was around when I used to watch Mork and Mindy, a spinoff of Happy Days, on TV every week. So when I started hearing spinoffs and prequel series, the ideas of prequels themselves, I'm a fan of the Star Wars prequels. I don't mind going back to the beginning. I think it's always potentially interesting to go back to the beginning of some of these characters. Often it's done wrong, but sometimes it's done great. But Game of Thrones, this world of Game of Thrones, I always say the world of Ice and Fire, there's so much to mine. George R. R. Martin has just created this amazing world, as we all know. So that cynicism started to wear off. I was really excited about Blood Moon. It gets canceled. Will we ever find out the true reason? I don't know. House of the Dragon emerges. That one makes sense. Targaryens. And then all this news of animated shows and other spin-offs, I gotta tell you, cynicism started to return to me. Wasn't sure about this. Is this what we really need? And then I just kind of had this thought, and this is what I will put out to you guys as we start to wrap up the show today. I am truly a fan of this show, of this world, of these characters in this series, and just the potential that's there, just like I am Star Wars. Star Wars isn't just a movie to me. A lot of you listening are Marvel fans, whether it be from growing up with the comics or becoming a fan through the MCU. Doesn't matter to me. You're a fan of this world. You're a fan of that Marvel stuff. You're the cinematic universe or just the Marvel universe. You're a fan of it. I love those movies. I love the worlds. I don't dive into them as much as I do, but Star Wars I do. And I am loving everything that's been out on Disney Plus. And I'm loving everything that's going to be coming on Disney Plus in the Star Wars world. From The Mandalorian, I'm looking forward to Obi-Wan Kenobi, The Acolyte, Andor, from those big shows. Definitely looking forward to new movies, but I am so in on those shows. But I'm also excited about the little tiny things they're doing. The re-release of some of the old animated shows, droids, Ewoks, silly shows, the Ewok specials, doesn't matter, it's there. The original Clone Wars series, the older ones, those are there. Lego Star Wars stuff, a new holiday special last year with Lego. We got a Halloween Lego special forthcoming. I love it. Why? Because I'm a Star Wars fan. So no different than an MCU fan that's enjoying Falcon Winter Soldier. Scarlet Witch. We got Loki got his own series and more on the way. And now you get the What If series, the adaptation of those comics or a version of those comics for the MCU in animated form. It's just a world to crawl around in. We love this stuff. We grew up with this stuff. If you like Transformers, you want that world. If you're like He-Man, you might want to crawl around, not just in the stories around He-Man, but new stories. You might want a Skeletor origin story. You don't know. If you love these worlds, you want to crawl around with them. You don't want to leave them. I'm not holding on to HBO's Game of Thrones show like, oh, it was a great experience. I don't want to lose the love of it. It's with me. That world is with me. That's why we're doing a rewatch. You can go back into it. This wasn't just another TV show for me. This was this new world that I loved. I even appreciate more than the Lord of the Rings movies, which are Peter Jackson's original trilogy, Lord of the Rings. I guess you can refer to it as original trilogy. And I've grown to appreciate the Hobbit series a little bit more, but the Lord of the Rings movies are three of my favorite. They're life-changing. I go back to those movies when I'm down and out, depressed, or need some inspiration. But I don't go into those worlds as much as I do Star Wars and Game of Thrones. I just don't feel I need to. I appreciate those movies on a different level. Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, World of Ice and Fire. These are. I want to spend time here. And HBO Max and Warner Brothers are trying to win some wars. They're trying to win these business wars, but I'm excited about this. And I know they're looking at other animated shows. And I even have heard some rumors about some of the time frames being zeroed in on. Maybe not 1,000 years in the past, but maybe closer, 100 years. House of Dragon obviously going to be, about a century or so before a Game of Thrones. That a lot of the stuff could be run alongside some of the stories we've already known, be focused on certain characters. And that's kind of the thing they're looking on. They don't want it just to be, I think I would love, the Blood Moon I was looking forward to. I'd love a series of The Long Night. I would love the Andals, the Children of the Forest. I love all those things. Go to the God's Eye and sign the peace deal there, man. I'd love to see it on the screen as an active series, not flashbacks. But it seems now, right now, they're going to try to build out the Game of Thrones world, the GOT verse, kind of closer to the show that ignited a fandom. That's just things I've been hearing around town. I'm intrigued by that. I'm absolutely intrigued by that. We always try to give a book update here. Yeah, when's a winner? Yeah, that's your update. Yeah, it's on the way. George is busy. George has his hands in all these. But that's why I'm excited about this expanding GOT, Song of Ice and Fire world. A show about the Golden Empire, ET? Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot there. And it can be its own story, its own world. I would love a show about the Shy. I'd love to focus on specific characters. If we have a series about Kenobi, a character we know and love, but we're going to focus in on a certain part of his life. If we got a series on Loki and what's going on with him after events that we're familiar with as it spins off in other events and other multiverses and verses, I think we're excited for that now. Imagine that in the world of Game of Thrones. Imagine not just a show that's House of the Dragon or Robert's Rebellion, but imagine going, hey, here's a limited run series, a live action show, 6 episodes of the Tourney at Harrenhal, or focusing in on the Lannisters as kids, Tyrion, Cersei, Jaime. I'm just spitballing. That may be something you're interested in or not. I don't know. But imagine if you could. Let's just go do that. Let's go get something that's a little bit different in the animated world. But also maybe it's about a character you know and love, or you thought you knew, and maybe you thought you loved them. We're going to find a little bit more. Maybe you didn't love them, and now you are going to find out more to make them love. I'm excited by that. I'm excited by this news. E.T., 9 voyages, 10,000 ships, House of the Dragon. I admittedly was dubious, had doubt, cynicism. Do we really want this? It could go wrong. It could really not work. But oddly enough, though I do think, I don't know the whole story. I want to know the story. I'm bummed. I was really looking forward to the series that we came to know as Blood Moon. For so long, it was unnamed, right? The fact that HBO said, no, not good enough. We don't feel something's there. We're going to back off on this. I am sorry for everyone involved. It sucks. It sucks when you put your heart and effort into something, actually to get the point of shooting the pilot, and beyond just the, hey, Dan and Dave got to reshoot their pilot, different time. But the fact that HBO looked at it and said, not good enough, shows that they understand the importance of what they have, the value of what they have, and what our expectations are and our standards are. The fact that some of the early shots, promotional shots, some of the early stories of them shooting on sets that we're already familiar with, that makes me even more confident. They know that world you love, we're not going to do something, so it's going to be a different show, different feel, different characters, different people behind it. We've looked behind and we've seen the successes of Game of Thrones, and we've seen the failures. We've seen the things they may have done wrong, the missteps they may have taken, or the things we put in there that we shouldn't have now, and times have changed, and let's approach the show in a different way, including a more diverse cast. Already one of the big changes of the House of Dragon, right? I have just a lot of confidence that they understand why we're doing this, why we're doing this, why we're here, why we're invested, and they want to meet those expectations. They want to really do it right. So oddly enough, that's what that news of Blood Moon did for me. Hey, I'm done talking about all this. I want to start wrapping up the show here with a bit of a call to action. You can follow me on Twitter at Ken Napzok. You can follow the GPA at Good People GPA. It doesn't matter, each one, include me in those tweets, but use the hashtag Casterly Talk if you have a question going forward. The old days on Anchor, we had a voice memo system. I'm going to maybe work on setting up maybe a Google number, or maybe if you're a member of the GPA and go to the gpa.fund to become a member, and you want to pop in on the Discord and leave a voice memo in the Casterly Talk section of our Discord server for GPA. Maybe you can do that, and I can pull it. If you have a question, just a thought, and more importantly, a thing to celebrate about an expanded Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire world, what's there to celebrate that? What are you excited about that? And also, again, the rewatch will continue diving into the themes and lessons of HBO's A Game of Thrones, Season 3, Episode 2, Dark Wings, Dark Words, coming your way Right now, probably just be me doing it, but pretty soon some other guests, some other pundits joining the show. If you have a question about that episode, a thought about that episode, get ahead of it. Reach out, use that hashtag Casterly Talk, and let me know. Fun to just catch up with all of you. Fun to just sit here and roll around the news, stumble over some of the names, get back up to speed. I've been out of practice. I've been trying here. On the podcast version, you won't see this. On the YouTube version, I picked up this book, The Photography of Game of Thrones. Shout out to the fine folks at Inside Editions. I did buy the book, written by Helen Sloan with Michael Kogi. This is an amazing, nearly 500-page book of the photography of the show, behind-the-scenes stuff, sets, shots from scenes you love. I cannot recommend this big, giant book enough, and it kind of got me not back in the mood. I'm always in the mood to talk Game of Thrones, but back up to speed. You know what I mean? We're all a little bit out of practice. The show we know and love is in our rearview mirror. Even if we watch it, rewatch it, it's still in our rearview mirror. The next book, it's still coming out. And right now we just have stories, rumors of stories, rumors of news, rumors of shows to come, and one show on the way. We have to all get back up to speed, and this is the place to do it. Hang out, have fun, celebrate Game of Thrones and the world of Ice and Fire. So happy to be back up and running. Thanks for listening here in the GPA Podcast Network. Thanks for watching here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe. We're building this channel from scratch. We didn't want to just want to put this on the GPA channel. We wanted this to be hyper-focused, and that, if you want to talk Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, Casterly Talk is the YouTube channel to go. We'll put some stuff up there on the YouTube channel that will be non-podcast related, and we're going to do this once a week here. The rewatch starts next week, and that's going to be kind of what happens. But along the way, if news breaks, we'll do a special episode. So subscribe to the podcast to get ready for those too as well. That's it. Love hanging out with all of you. 7 blessings, friends. 7 blessings.